And if they can go after people who are obviously corrupt, making an enormous amount of money, getting after them, getting some money back, etc., would add to the confidence. Finally, amongst the short-term thing, Pakistan really has to address the energy problem. It is not unique to Pakistan. I happened to be in Delhi when India went black. So these things are complex things to manage, grid systems and so on and so forth. There are 2 points of view insofar as the energy sector in Pakistan is concerned. There are engineers who tell us that there is plenty of electricity being generated. It just doesn't get transmitted and distributed because of the failure of the systems. There are people who say that no, generation is not enough and you have to increase generation. Again, if I may refer to my Latin American experience, I dealt with a few countries where there were serious short-term shortages. And these were taken care of very quickly. World Bank provided money, expertise, and so on. There are ships that are floating around all over the world that have power stations located on them. They can be brought in, rented, plugged into the system. And I remember working on Dominican Republic, doing something like this. And within a matter of months, that particular problem was resolved. So there are things that can be done. Let me come to the, but before I do this, my arithmetic tells me that if Pakistan's structural growth rate is of the order of about 3.5% increase in GDP a year, a short-term program can be easily developed on the lines that are indicated, which would add another 3 percentage points of growth to the GDP in 3 years, almost double it. 0.5% will come from just increased confidence, bringing in more capital and so on. 1% from energy shortage. 0.5% hopefully in measures taken to improve the security situation. 0.5% in terms of improved trade with India. And then I have a list of positives on to which I will go a little later. That would add another 0.5%. So it is not inconceivable for the country to have its rate of growth go from 3 to 3.5% to about 6.5% in 3 years. But for the long term, this will need more work, and this will need much greater planning and so forth. I have, in the work that I've done for ICES in the last few months, identified about half a dozen what I call positives. And my view is, which Yasin Anwar and his colleagues have not yet accepted, because they have not listened to me with the kind of seriousness that I think I deserve, that if they were to include these thoughts in a country strategy, they could add another 2 to 3% points to the rate of growth. Now, what am I talking about? Let me mention 5 or 6 what I call the positives. The most important positive is Pakistan's agriculture. Not many people know that Pakistan has the world's largest irrigated system. There is nothing that comes equal to it. The Americans are the second largest, considerably smaller than that of Pakistan. And yet, this particular system, built with enormous amount of expenditure, both by the British government and by the Pakistani government, produces low quality crops and low value added crops. So changing the cropping pattern, introducing higher value added crops would add enormously to Pakistan's output, Pakistan's agriculture output. The second thing that I include in my positives is that Pakistan always has had a very interesting, well-developed, small and medium-scale engineering industry. Those of you who know Pakistan know about Wazirabad, Gujarat, Sialkot, and so on. The economists have now come up with the notion of clusters. which goes against what economists think rational thinking would produce, which is not that people will cluster together and create all kinds of bottlenecks. Clustering leads to better performance, and there are areas in Pakistan where this thing has begun to happen, and these areas are around Lahore. Now, you tie this development of clusters with opening of trade to India, and what it will mean is that Pakistan can develop supply chains and link them up with industries in India and China. There is no reason why Pakistan should make automobiles. It has only a very small market for them. But it has, and I have been to some of those, it has some very decent component manufacturing companies in this area that I'm talking about, Gujranwala, Sialkot, and so on. So chains can be built which will supply parts and components to the very large Indian auto industry, very large China auto industry. And so Pakistan, that way, begins to link itself with other parts of the world. My fourth thing surprises people a bit when I count it as positive. And that has to do with Pakistani women. The High Commissioner invited me to speak at a conference that he had put together about women entrepreneurs and so on. I have, again with the help of a couple of research people in ICES, done some interesting analysis. I don't know how many of you know that at this point, something like 55 to 60% of the total enrollment in institutions of higher learning are women. So there is a majority of women in schools, in colleges and universities, and even a much larger majority of women in professional schools, which means engineering schools, medical schools, dental schools, IT schools, and so on. I have estimated that something like 1 million women are coming into the workforce every year, highly trained, very motivated. I've been saying this, and my friends from my gender don't like this. I say that I don't know why. Maybe there are good anthropological reasons for this. Pakistani women are much better than Pakistani men. And these women are doing some wonderful job. They have set up small shops all over the place, in fashion industry, in IT sector. Salim Gauri once told me that there is an IT cottage industry that has developed, and it has been built around by women who are recently married and have to stay home, but they have computers and they work for uncles and aunts and so on, sitting outside. So women are now coming in. They're coming into finance, they're coming into IT, entertainment industry, journalism, health, education, and so on. The world's largest school system is a Pakistani school system, in which a massive amount of investment has been made by a venture capital fund. It's called Beacon House, and it is now in many, many parts of the world, and now they have set up a university. So, and that was done entirely by a woman, and now her daughters-in-law are getting involved. Tanta Yong talked about the Pakistani diaspora. That is also an amazing development about which we have not done enough work. My estimate is that we have about 7 to 8 million Pakistanis living outside the country, and that their per capita income is about 2/3 the total income of Pakistan. Their savings rate is higher than the savings rate of Pakistan. When I was at the World Bank, we studied diasporas. All of them follow the same sort of spending pattern as they grow and mature. Pakistani diaspora is now at a stage where they will be prepared to make investments in their own country, provided they can develop they can develop confidence in the country's future. So these are some of the positives that should be built into longer term. By long, I mean really medium term, for the next 3 to 8 years. And then the arithmetic that I've done is that this would add something like another 2.5% in terms of rates of growth to the Pakistani economy. So if, and now we will hear more about some of the sectors where this kind of growth should be possible. But it is not inconceivable. It's not a pie in the sky kind of thing. With intelligent policies, with honest and dedicated leadership, and with good association with the people, getting their ideas worked into the strategies, it is quite possible, very possible, for Pakistan to go from the present 3.5 to 6.5% rate of growth in 3 years, and to 8% in about 8 years. And that is what gives me hope. This message needs to get out. People outside Pakistan need to understand that here is a country of nearly 200 million people, which has that kind of potential, which is now ready to go forward if things